What's up, everybody? James Duggan here with IGN. Joining me is Scott Mercer, principal designer of Overwatch 2. Here to grill you, ask all the Overwatch 2 questions. The first one being, can you kind of discuss what this means for players of Overwatch 1? Is this patch, an expansion, or I'm judging by the 2 next to Overwatch, a full-blown sequel?
It's a full-blown sequel. When you look at all the stuff that Overwatch 2 has, for the existing Overwatch player, we're adding maps for each. We're adding multiple maps for each of the current game modes. We're adding a new game mode that you haven't seen before called Push. And it's a new core game mode. It's nothing like Lucio Ball that you might experience on Arcane. It's something you'll might play every night in quick play or in your competitive queue. Then we're of course going to have new heroes. We've only shown off one of those here. We're not really talking about Sojourn, but she's our first Canadian hero, so we're really excited about her. And that's all a lot of really amazing stuff for if you enjoy the PvP, if you enjoy that 6v6 competitive play, you're jazzed about all that. But then there's this other side where it brings into this cooperative player versus environment experience where we've had so many players just asking, please can we learn more about the world of Overwatch? Please can we learn more about these characters? What's happening to them? We've been over the years sort of leading up to something pretty big, and you see that finally with Winston hitting the button and issuing the recall and Tracer responding back and all these things lighting up. We've been building up to this moment, and with the announcement cinematic 0 hour, you see a few heroes have showed up. So you see May has answered, and they go to Paris. They help that out. So we'll have these story missions that'll have you'll play four with four players. You'll go through a really cool, intense story. We've got this great we've got great character projections lined up. It'll be really exciting for that. And then on top of that, all right, we hit you with just that pound of story.
Sure.
Then every night, after you've done that, we've got hero missions, which is this repeatable thing that you can play every night. It changes. We take you all around the world to using all of our different maps, and then we layer on this really awesome progression system on top of that. So it gives you something to work towards while you're playing hero mode. And with that, we've got really cool talents. Some things that we're showing off on the floor right now in our Rio mission. Things where it's we want to give choices for the players that when they level up, they get a choice between two really cool talents that change their abilities, and they do really crazy things that we can't really do in PvP because they'd be completely imbalanced. And, people will
sure.
Scream about it. It's how could Blizzard put this in? It's well, we can put it in PvE where the robots aren't on Reddit. They're not.
yeah. Sure.
Feedback. It's
Maybe they have their own Reddit.
They don't feel bad about it.
Right.
So we'll have these really over the top things. I mean, we've already been showing off things like May turning into an ice ball and then rolling over enemies. We've seen Reinhardt slam down
Genji,
with Earth Shatter.
The ranged ultimate.
Yes, the ranged ultimate, which it's really amazing to play with. So there's just again, we think about all that stuff and you combine it all together, it's a sequel.
Yep. So there's a ton to unpack there, and let's start with the story. So there's a 4-player co-op narrative story, correct?
Yes.
Can you choose kind of a la Retribution which hero you're going to play, or is there kind of a preset list of heroes for that particular mission thematically?
Yeah. So we're actually sort of working that out. Where we started with is locking in certain heroes for the particular mission, the ones that make sense for that story moment. It's pretty easy to say hey, we're going to Rio, maybe Lucio should be in it. But we actually are experimenting. We've taken a step back recently and said hey, could we actually give you that choice? Could we give you that choice of instead of using Tracer in Rio, maybe you can use Genji? Because in the story that we are telling, Genji is available and he is there and he shows up in the cinematics before the mission starts. So we're examining that. It's something we're kind of playing with because we think that there'll be a lot of people that they've got their favorite characters and they want to be able to, if they get a chance, be able to play their favorite characters in the story missions.
Sure. How do you kind of rationalize that with some of the chaotic evil characters? So if there's a mission to destroy Italian, Reaper's I'm ready.
Yeah. That's something where this is a telling of the sort of reforming of Overwatch. They've recalled. So I think it's necessarily appropriate that you see Junkrat there. He's off in Australia or somewhere doing crime, and he's not really interested in saving the world.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll still we still have some limits, just so the story makes some, it doesn't make complete nonsense.
Right. So kind of mechanically, you're telling a conventional narrative through a mechanism we've seen a lot in games, which is a playable story, and that's really exciting in the Overwatch universe because until this point, it's been a lot of extended stuff as well as little hints and nods in the game. And then aside from that, you have hero missions, and these strike me as the mechanically challenging. Replayable. We talked about progression. We'll talk about incentivization after this question, but I just want to ask, how complex mechanically do these get where you have, retribution maybe here, and then you have something like a WoW mythic raid up here?
Yeah. It's something we are definitely exploring, the concept of difficulties. We do want to provide hero missions that will provide a challenge for a broad spectrum of players that are necessarily they don't have the mechanics of like a pro player, but they're still they know how to use their character. They really enjoy it, and they have fun when they do play Overwatch now. But in terms of are we going to go to full blown WoW boss land? And prior to working on Overwatch, I worked on World of Warcraft doing a lot of raid encounters. I don't think we'll quite get there. I mean, a lot of that comes down to we have 4 players, not 10 or 25. We still want to have encounters that encourage team play. And you see that a bit in Rio, where Ice Wall can be used in a lot of different ways that help out your team. It's like if someone does go down and you need some help bringing that character up, they can put up an Ice Wall to provide you cover. There's lots of little moments like that. So I don't think we want to necessarily see the full mythic experience. Because that's kind of crazy. Sure. But we do want to provide something. We do want to provide a strong challenge for players that master their character. Someone that if they feel like, hey, I am an awesome Genji player, I want to play with other players who have similarly mastered their characters, and then we have a challenging thing to do with hero missions.
Great. Let's talk about progression. And I guess the first question I have is kind of a clarification. So you unlock these modified abilities. Is there any concern that people are going to get attached to those and go into PvP and be like, wow?
So I can leave this one pretty much to rest. They're not going to be part of PvP.
Yeah.
They're crazy. Right. And it's something we're really designing these, since we know they're not going to be PvP, let's even get crazier. Let's even do nuttier things, things that really play into the fantasy of these characters. Part of what we're trying to do with these talents is do things that you can only imagine Genji might have done, when he uses his ultimate and starts shooting out energy blasts from his sword. That's something you can imagine him doing and we can really do that now.
So in terms of incentivization, do you feel that these talents are sufficient? I mean, keep in mind that the context here is this is from a player base that is used to gear, to leveling up talents, to specs, to new abilities, to titles, mounts,
there will
all that
be
kind of
more, but it's something that we're still exploring. We're really investigating a lot of different systems. We've got a lot of, it's we can look at Diablo, we can look at, WoW. We're familiar with many of these kinds of systems, not just talents, and really trying to find the one that best works for Overwatch. But we don't have much otherwise to talk about that. But, there will be levels.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Only a few questions left, and I guess I want to ask, we spent a lot of time talking about PvE, and that's obviously a huge focus of Overwatch 2, but what does this mean for the PvP players? We talked about push. Is there some kind of more grandiose plan for PvP in Overwatch and Overwatch 2 that Overwatch 1 players are not necessarily going to get access to?
No, I mean, something very core and important to us is we want to have a shared multiplayer experience for all the players that have really been there with us, that have enjoyed Overwatch 1. We don't Overwatch 2 to be this moment where we say goodbye to those players. Instead, it's no, you're part of the community. It's you're one of us. It's hey, let's play multiplayer together. Everyone has fun doing that. We want to keep that strong. So in the future, when we come up with new heroes past Overwatch 2 release, they'll be available for Overwatch 1 players as well. Same thing with maps. We want that core experience to be shared together, because that's what I think it's what provides the community a lot of togetherness.
Gotcha. And finally, as much as you can at least, can you discuss the 2 new heroes, Sojourn and Echo, and what they're all about? Maybe even just a cool,
can't really talk about it.
Just give me a cool anecdote about this time you got drunk with Sojourn and you guys talked about college. And
I can tell you. So we've seen some of the Sojourn on some of the panels. I can say it's a really cool gun.
Yeah,
it's a really cool gun. You'll have a lot of fun with it. And she's got this crazy thing in her arm that something came out, and it's also that. So she's a cyborg, and then Echo. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, she's an important character. Yeah, I mean, you see, she's currently in our Rio mission as well, not as a hero, but she's actually piloting one of the transport there. So she'll be an important part of both characters. Will both be an important part of the story.
Great. And I guess as a final adage to that question, can you kind of just lay the land narratively? Who are the antagonists here? I think we can all understand who the protagonists are, but
Sure.
What's the conflict?
Sure. So the base conflict that the experience is Null Sector's back. They've attacked in the past. There's this group of robots that have been. Null Sector is a sort of offshoot. We have Omnics in the world of Overwatch, and most of them are just ordinary citizens. They work jobs. They're just, and they're just like you and I. They're not human. They're Omnics.
Sure.
But there's this sort of offshoot, this like other group of Null Sector that is a bit more aggressive, shall we say, fighting for robot rights. And in the past, they've caused some trouble. I mean, you saw that with one of our previous events in the past. But now they've come back and strangely even stronger than before. So a lot of what you're initially doing is fighting off these initial attacks from Null Sector. You fight them off in Rio, and you'll fight them off in other locations as well. And you'll learn more about why they're doing what they're doing and who's behind it.
Great. Scott Mercer, Principal Designer on Overwatch 2, thank you so much for joining me. For all things Overwatch as well as Blizzard and Blizzcon, keep it right here on IGN.